I call the meeting of the Urbana Historic Preservation Commission to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dossett.
Here.
Mr. Metcalf.
Here.
Ms. Novak.
Here.
Ms. Paluso. Mr. Seiler.
Here.
Mr. Shepard.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum, just one absence. We have no changes to the agenda, so the next item is approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on April 1st. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Very detailed, lengthy, well-done minutes.
I have,
Oh, yes, I was to remind everyone to use the mic, and we can note that Ms. Paliuso has arrived.
yay, Gina.
Yay. Be sure that you turn your mic on when you're speaking and turn it off when you're not speaking. There were a few issues at the last meeting, apparently. Trent.
Well, in the first paragraph of the minutes, we're talking about 204 West Main Street demolition. In the third sentence, it says, now the city is in the position that 20% of the remaining historic blocks in downtown Urbana will be reconstructed with a new facade that they have no control over. What is that about? 20%? Did we throw that figure out someplace? That 20% of something's happening?
Well, one thing's for sure,
Mike.
I never
Mike.
said it.
Give your mic.
I'm on.
Okay.
One thing's for sure, I never said it.
Well, I just
don't
don't
think.
I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
Did you say something, Kevin?
No, I recall, I think Mr. Dossett did say something and put out a 20% number, but I don't think it was this.
Maybe that
we would
refers
have
to that side of that block or something. I don't. It's just
I think it might have been a statement that there's a possibility that that some amount of buildings could be, could
I
face a
wondered if we
similar
could
fate.
rework
So
that and
Can
Yeah,
we
we-
just delete that sentence? and
Yeah,
leave the
I'd
rest of
say
it?
so.
Let's,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
do that.
I just
Okay.
it just
Yeah.
So we'll delete the sentence beginning now the city and ending have no control over.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Trent, because I don't recall making a broad statement like that.
Well, I
and
just
didn't
don't know-
intend to.
Yeah.
I was simply trying to draw people's attention to what had happened to the one
Yeah.
facade that had been destroyed.
And didn't we
so-
talk about something else maybe that's in the works, or I don't even know. I can't remember. Anyway, so enough of that one.
Thanks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is very minor, but in the sixth paragraph, in terms of the integrity, that paragraph, toward the end it says, city staff has now completed a detailed study. I just changed that to detailed. A detailed study in that first line of that paragraph. And then on page 6, the last, right before study session, it says, Mr. Dossett thought the sandboard maps would be a good panel to have as well as part of the interactive maps. What are we talking about there? Is that part of what would be on these web pages?
yeah, that was thrown out as an idea of something that could be integrated into those maps.
So a good panel that would be in that part of this, not the podcast, but in the,
Perhaps element would be
Yeah,
a better
yeah.
word.
okay.
I don't think I
That-
didn't have any idea about how it would be formatted.
Yeah, it just seemed like that sentence in a paragraph by itself didn't really associate with very much. Or that good panel, I don't know, I got
So
kinda
replace
lost
panel
about
with element is
maybe.
acceptable?
Yeah, all right, and I'm done.
Okay. Anybody else? Matt?
On the, I guess, right above number 11, we're still in section 10, but the second paragraph, where I mentioned wanting to prevent these sorts of things happening again, like happened downtown. I that's all accurate. I feel like it lacks a little bit of the context, so I was hoping maybe we could say something that I valued the historic sense of place in Urbana, and would like to see it preserved, and that's why I don't want it to look like downtown Champaign. And I stand by that remark because I don't feel it's particularly historic feeling, but I do think that ours has that, and so just adding that little bit of context would be appreciated.
I would move that the minutes be approved as corrected.
Second?
Okay, any other additions or corrections? Max, did you have enough to add in context for Mr. Metcalf's
Yes.
statement? Okay. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved as corrected. Thank you. I don't think we have any written communications, do we? Nope. Okay. Next item is audience participation. Please.
Hello, audience.
We're delighted to have an audience member. Happy Preservation Month, by the way, everyone. Are you on?
The light's on, so I think I
There
am.
you
It's
are.
maybe directional. So my name is Dennis Roberts. I am on the city council. I live in the East Urbana neighborhood. And I don't see that there's a specific item on the agenda that has to do with the topic that you just mentioned from your minutes. But I'd like to just express the similar concern that I have, that as we see businesses, and we've seen now two for sure that are doing a facade renovation or removal. That would be Matt Show at 204, I guess it is, West Main. And also they're doing our renovation to the space that once was Priceless Books on East Main Street, and it looks like the facade there is, I don't know what kind of, I don't have an idea of what the depth of the change is going to be on that. Maybe structurally, not very much. But it would be pertinent for us to consider the adoption of a historic design overlay district for the downtown. Whether you want to call it historic or not, maybe it would be up to you. But I think a thoughtful discussion about whether the Historic Preservation Commission or another body should work with the city to draft a overlay district for the downtown would be timely. And I say this because in conversation during the Boneyard Creek well, I don't know, it was a ribbon cutting, a rededication is the word I'm looking for. I had a conversation with the owner of the Tiernan building, and he also owns the building on the West Plaza, which encompasses the record shop and a couple other storefronts there. I think the address is 119 to 125 West Main Street. He's considering doing changes to the facade there, updates to the facade. And so I guess I have thoughts about how that might go, what direction it would take. Having an opportunity to prepare a design overlay would be wise, perhaps, to guide people who are taking the time to make a facade change or a development, to keep the massing, the nature of the window design, the entrances, the materials that are being used, to align with the historic nature of our downtown buildings that do exist today. And I'd like to, just as an example of, I think, what good intentions that didn't work out well, and I think was generally perceived to have perhaps been a design error, was the addition that took place in the 1970s to the Urbana Free Library, where at that time they decided that the newer construction would be significantly different looking to offset it from the rest of the building. Well, when they made the addition, the third edition in the 1990s, they revisited that idea and they retrofitted the middle section of the library from being a modernist kind of image to match the original building that was built by and designed by Joseph Royer and dedicated in, I think it was 1923. So I think that sometimes we have people who are energetic and they want to do something new, but also they might want to be reminded that the harmony of the downtown means something as well. And if we have a lot of disjointed storefronts, especially along Main Street, I think it tends to harm rather than preserve or enhance the downtown. So if the HPC would be a body that would like to delve into that or give suggestions based on your knowledge, which is probably deeper than mine, about commercial storefronts that were built, at the time that most of our buildings were built in the downtown, it would be very wise. And I realize that a lot of the downtown commercial fronts are fairly plain. They're not super unique. They're pretty straightforward and probably were constructed with economy in mind. But there is a certain, pattern of windowing, decoration window, elements, door and entrance elements, the size of the display windows, and the materials that are being used that could be offered as guideposts to those who want to enhance their buildings. So that's what I'm just suggesting. So thank you.
Thank you. I was negligent. I need to introduce someone. We like to introduce Lori Pearson, who's our new planning manager for the city of Urbana. Lori came to us after being in Evanston for a while and previously was on the other side of Wright Street for the city of Champaign. So welcome, Lori. Hopefully we won't drive you nuts at commission meetings. We'll try. After commission meetings. Okay. We have no continued public hearings, so the next item is old business, and Scott Dossett has submitted a draft for our consideration. I'd like to put that under old business since we did discuss this at the last meeting, or not this specifically, but we discussed this topic at the last meeting. Did everybody get a copy of Scott's resolution draft? Yes, okay.
Well, just now.
Yes,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
now.
I mean, I distributed them
Would you
before this
like to
meeting.
introduce it? or-
Yeah, I would. First of all, I want to say that, this is not meant to necessarily provide any kind of signal to planning people or to community development. It's not meant as a criticism of the work that they've done to date on this. I don't have enough deep historic background, frankly, to know whether criticism would be appropriate or not. But after our last meeting, actually Trent and I met at another function here in town. And at that meeting, as you can tell from the minutes, I'd voiced my concern about the failure of the facade renovation, I guess I want to say, in the 200 block that we've talked about. And so we thought, during conversation, what could we do? And I thought, well, at least what we can do is to try to have an opinion and to make that opinion known, and really that's all that this piece is about. There are some statements of fact here that, everything is up for review by you all, and I really didn't know how to structure a proclamation, except I've read a couple of them. So the whereases, that's just how I typed this. I've already found one error in, 5, paragraph 5, which does make an important statement, whereas recent modifications to buildings in this area that should be have compromised the historic representativeness of this area. I mean, that's a pretty strong statement, and I don't know whether any other commission members really want that language to be as strong as it should be, and I don't really know how to move a proclamation or a resolution forward. This felt really good to do in a way, because I serve on the Civilian Police Review Board, I do business with you guys, I do Sister Cities stuff, and I know that in the haze of the busyness that we all have, a lot of times it feels to me as if my role is to have an independent mind, but to essentially be fed issues, actions, and ideas from staff. And hey, I got to have an idea myself and write it down. And so just from that idea of action from the commission, I wanted to take the time to draft through this. And Trent and I have worked on it a little bit, but of course I didn't want to violate anything related to the Open Meetings Act or whatever. And so none of the rest of the commissioners have seen this, and so I understand how you might want to defer any kind of action or later it or whatever, but I will probably make a motion at some point in time during our deliberations to accept this as a resolution from our group to the city council, in hopes really, and this is a paragraph that I added just today, that where I wanted to really show support for, let's see, where did I put this in? I was looking for a paragraph that I added to today. Whereas the Historic Preservation Commission wishes to support the work of the Planning Division staff in prioritizing the preservation of downtown. So, I mean, what that means to me as we address council is that, you know, we would like for the council to delegate and dedicate staff to finally get the job of design review for downtown finished. And to me, that really is, especially since we have our new planning director here, an attempt to say, you know, we support what planners do and what community development does. And I didn't want to appear to be critical without trying to support their efforts there. So anyway, that's a long-winded introduction.
Okay, any comments? Matt?
I love the language that you wrote, specifically about the fact that it has compromised some of the historic integrity of downtown. Absolutely. 100% behind that. As a matter of fact, I'm more radical. I'd put that at the top, you know, because I think that's part of what motivates our actions. We want to support the work of what our planners and our friends are doing here on behalf of the city. But that's a significant problem, and that's part of why I know I joined the commission and asked for this position, because that's important to me, and I think it needs to be important to our community, because that's part of how we identify. Our sense of place is part of our identity. And so when we lose those things, and to kind of tie in a little bit about what Mr. Roberts, our guest, had said, I think you look at our downtown. Downtowns are very much part of our identity here. And so when we preserve those elements of the historic infrastructure, we help to preserve that. So I'm 100% behind that. I love this. I would ask one kind of administrative question, and maybe put this out there too. Are these two different things? Because I love the amendment to the zoning ordinance where we help to identify and we make recommendations. Is that different than encouraging the design review board to do something? Is it two separate resolutions, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I assume that Scott included the pieces of this preservation ordinance just as background.
Yes, yeah, that was meant as an introduction to the bona fides of this committee to approach the council with a resolution.
Okay.
And they are verbatim from
that's
at least
the
what's on the
current exact
website
language?
right,
Okay.
right now. For 2014, it still says, but that's copied right out of the city ordinance.
So that's our current language.
That's the current language, yeah.
No revisions.
No
to that.
revision
I see.
whatsoever.
Okay.
And revising that is a really big deal. So I didn't want to, you know, I mean, I think we need to take a look at that ordinance periodically. You know, I don't know if we have lately, to look and see how it feels. But this is not any attempt to change anything what's in the ordinance now. And in fact, there are significant portions. I mean, the ordinance goes on to have like 0.456 and maybe a 7. I just took the 3 that I considered the most germane to
Right.
this.
Okay.
Trent?
I'm not really familiar with where proclamations come from, or, I mean, usually it's somebody day, or, I don't know, does the legal department prepare these things in cities, or where do they come from normally? Who drafts them, do you know?
Well, my tenure here being short, I'm going
Well,
to comment generally, if I may.
What maybe Champaign does.
Well, and thank you for bringing that up, because I did want to point out that resolutions, for instance, are generally done by legislative bodies, not by advisory bodies or boards and commissions. So I think we might want to have some internal discussion on what this should be called, and what the format might be that's most appropriate for this commission. Proclamations are, as you stated, generally it's so-and-so day, let's celebrate this. There's not usually a position stated in there as there is in this document. It's pretty much just an announcement. So I'm hoping that maybe you would give staff some time to go back internally and perhaps check with the legal department on the best format for this kind of a document.
Do you mind if we go on and discuss points within it, as long as we don't finalize anything?
I think it's the format that I wanted to make sure that we have right, not necessarily the content.
Okay. Good enough? Okay. For the, let's see, well, the part that begins, whereas recent modifications to buildings, if we do go through with something like this, I would scratch recent. We're dealing, our downtown is the result of modifications that have taken place over many years. And to me, one of the biggest eyesores is the one that Dennis mentioned, that perhaps the property owner's looking at rehabbing. The one that's been covered with Drive It and is an Italianate era building that probably had the hood molds whacked off. So that was done decades ago, I think. So anyway,
Okay.
if we go through with this, I would recommend saying, whereas modifications to buildings in this area continue to compromise the historic representativeness of the area. I know that it's still going. Yeah, I know that it's still going on, but my point is, it's just not something that's only happened recently. It's been decades long.
Well, I'm typing through changes here on on a Word file, so
Okay.
I can read back what I would change that to, or
And I think that last paragraph sentence, request the city council expedite the protection of and create a design review board. Maybe just, seems like it's a little awkward right in there, where after protection and then talking about the.
creation of a design review board?
Something like that, yeah, maybe. But overall, just as a general idea, I kind of like somebody having some say-so over facade changes in the downtown. It just seems like a good idea, and it kind of surprising in a way. It's never happened. We don't have it now, but maybe just never got brought up before. I mean, when Busey Bank tore down a huge chunk to put up the new building, I worked there then, and I can remember them buying building after building, and Ray Street, instead of a parking lot facing over toward the embassy, was all these little storefronts, and that was a huge change. Anyway, it's happened for a long time. And the county bank building, that yeah, a lot of big changes have happened. Parking.
Matt, did you have something else?
And I don't know if it's germane to this particular aspect, but I wanted to bring it up. Does this improve our ability or give us any ability to advise or be advised regarding changes in a TIF district? Because I don't know a lot about TIFs, and we brought that up last week, where one of the issues with 204 was the fact that I think that's in a TIF district, so we wouldn't have been advised or had any advisory capability over that area. Is that germane here? Does that have relevance? I guess I'm unclear on both of those things. So
That's a Lori question, maybe.
Could you help me by restating the question?
sure. So 204, from my understanding, 204 was in a TIF district, and as a result, we were not aware of the impending destruction of the facade or other information, specifically as the Historic Preservation Commission, with the points that Scott's outlined here specifically.
So our not knowing about it because it was in the TIF district
Yeah.
is maybe getting mixed up with demolition delay. So we have a demolition delay ordinance
Okay.
that allows someone to go in and landmark something if there's been a demolition permit pulled. And it wasn't a proposed demolition. The facade was to be saved. It just caved
Mm-hmm.
as part of the project. So it was an unexpected aspect of the project.
I thought I read at some point that, and I could be wrong here, that we lack oversight, like TIF districts trump historic districts. Is that the case?
I don't think
Or-
so.
Or the fact that we don't have some kind of
Sorry,
overlay
Lori.
over downtown, does that affect us?
This is Lori's
or-
second day.
I know and so much of it, and I apologize because I don't know the ins and outs of TIFs, and I'm only vaguely familiar with the demolition process.
So I've been here almost a year now, so I might be slightly more qualified to answer this. But I think that the demolition delay list either doesn't apply in business districts, or does it?
TIF.
It's just TIF.
Mhm.
Okay. So that would be. So
Does this enable us? Does this? Well, I guess because it just is creating a review board, it doesn't necessarily.
This is just
help us
saying
in
that
that regard.
we would support the creation of a review board. This doesn't do anything.
Right. No, I understand that. yeah.
And the way, I assume that the two other design review boards that are referenced in here are the MOR and the Busey corridor.
Yeah.
It might help to list
Well,
those.
no, actually, if you consider the MOR, that's the three. There's one in historic East Urbana. Actually, I think those are the only two design review boards. The MOR is a zoning area, but I'm not sure there's review in the MOR, but.
Yeah.
there's an MOR,
Okay.
design review
Oh,
board.
that's right, there is. Okay, so I should say three. Not two.
So, and we aren't involved in that, but that's a separate board or two that oversees those districts.
Okay.
So this doesn't impact us. I mean, I think there still could be a local historic district in the downtown, but we'd probably get a lot of owner objection. And I'm not sure how that would fly politically. Kim?
But there is one representative from the Historic Preservation Commission on those two boards, and that's me.
Oh,
But we haven't met,
yeah.
but just once in the time I've been on it,
How long have you been on?
since I think I started here.
Is that MOR and the Lincoln Busey area, or the two that you're on?
Yeah, the Design Review Board and the MOR.
MOR, okay.
So ultimately, this proclamation proposal, however we end up terming it, would encourage council to create a design review board for downtown. And just to be in general, that's the basic idea. And then from there, do we have connection to those design review boards, or do we have to put Kim on
Oh,
that
well,
too?
I guess because we have an official spot on the boards that's a commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah,
There is discussion to combine those two boards. And Kevin, maybe you can, I don't know what the status is. That's how it was brought up.
The status is pending. We haven't really had time to look into the combination of those two boards, but it does make, we think, a lot of sense.
I know that when I was working through this, I tried to avoid a phrase that Dennis used, which is zoning overlay, I think is what he said, because that just sounded like, well, it sounded like maybe a little bit too much steerage for council. I mean, if that's what they want to do, that's fine, but it also sounded like a much more complicated affair. And it seemed as if when we were talking about the East Urbana Design Review Board, which includes, members of the Historic East Urbana Neighborhood Association and neighbors of mine and stuff like that, it was after the city had decided to take out that Goodyear block. We had a proposal, and so there were things kind of on the table there, and it seemed as if that met the concerns of, my part of the community, my constituents, if you would, vis-a-vis HPC, and so that's why I chose this language. So I don't know how the boards work or if they ever meet or anything else, but I knew that zoning sounded like a very deep well I didn't want to go into, so.
Thank you for the clarifications as well. As Kevin noted, I'm young on the block too, so hearing how all of these things work together and are intertwined or not intertwined is important, and hopefully people watching this on the cable system will also have learned a little bit about that too, so thanks.
Did you have something?
I believe in our 2012 downtown plan, one of the implementation strategies in there, and perhaps Mr. Roberts can help out with this because he, I think, was part of the council back then. But in the implementation part of that plan, I believe we do have something in there stating that there should be a design review district or something along those lines for that area. Is that correct? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah, so, okay, I haven't, I didn't review that document for tonight, so I think it's also listed in the city council goals, which is an ongoing statement. And I know that if you're talking about, what the council or what the mayor might choose to do, the mayor has always been supportive of the idea of creating a downtown design district. And if I mentioned that it was zoning, okay, I want to erase that. But and typically these are guidelines which are suggestions to make the architect that's working with the facade that might be in question aware of the wishes of the city. But as my understanding is that these are voluntarily adopted. They're not. They don't have the teeth of regulation that would. At least the one in. I don't think that the one for the East Urbana neighborhood is. I think these are guidelines, but they're not requirements. So I mean, there's a difference to think about in that term too. But the city council itself would probably, and our community development staff would be the ones who would actually ultimately draft the document for the city council. But getting the support of the HPC to motivate that would be great, because I know that Mayor Pressing did comment that she thought that was a good idea during her 2012 campaign for re-election. But then, sometimes you have these ideas, but you never get to the goal, and years go by, and then we have instances where we have a facade that's falling apart, and you're kind of wondering what's going to replace it and how will that fit in, especially because in the modern era, it could go, it could become a super modern facade, and then you have to think, okay, now certainly the texture and the quality of the downtown is being changed and morphed as we speak if it goes in these different directions. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll also add that at the last HPC meeting, Jeff Engstrom mentioned that we had held one meeting as community development staff so it was sort of the first meeting, a kickoff meeting to start discussion of creating some sort of design review district or an overlay or whatever you want to call it. So we have had one staff level meeting on that. We haven't gotten into a whole lot of depth so far, but I think this discussion today and then the discussions that we're having as staff, I think we can move this forward.
Great. I think at this point, since we don't know what we would call this and what our capabilities are, that maybe we'll keep this for the next meeting, unless anybody else has any particular questions, and then that'll give us time to think about any other statements we might want to add to this as part of the plan. And then next time we meet, we'll have more information about what we could actually call this, what this would be. Fair enough?
We'd ask staff to kind of have an opinion for have them
Yes.
work on this,
Yep.
not just us.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. any other questions on
refine
this?
this.
Yeah. Nope. Okay. All right, great. Thank you for doing this.
Should I pass along this markup to, I'm sorry, the gentleman in the blue,
Max.
Max, so that it can be inserted in the minutes for the meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
But with the clarification that that's what we discussed and that there was no action taken on the
Yeah.
item, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. We have no new public hearings or no new business. Monitoring of historic properties, does anybody have anything? Yes.
Last week, I brought up that sign at the Royer House, 801 West Oregon, which has been removed. It took a little while,
Mhm.
but the posts are still there, but the sign's gone. So that did happen.
Mhm.
And they had a big party there. Was it Saturday night or something? You could hear it for about a block. People all over the place, so it's getting used now. It looked kind of empty for a while.
I have one.
Yes.
I was going to write these to a thumb drive so I could show you guys pictures because I got so excited during a walk to coffee the other day at 608 West Oregon. Do you recognize that building?
Yeah, they're working on it.
They're working on it. 608 West Oregon. As a matter of fact, I was hoping that maybe Johan would come to our meeting. I invited him today. Johan. There's a new philosophy prof at U of I who I just approached, walking down the street. And I think he and family are starting a pretty nice keep the windows, paint everything. He was asking, for example, about what would have been period colors for I don't know, I'll just say 1923. I'm not sure how old it was. And I said, well, you should come to the commission meeting because, someone might have an opinion or you can get an email address or something like that. So he has my email address, and I don't know whether he'll approach me, but it's. I wish you could all see what I'm seeing because it's a really cool house over there.
Great.
And
Thank you.
It's a house. I don't know what it was like in the old days, but when I first moved on Oregon Street, there was a professor that owned it that was a bon vivant and had parties and had a pool installed in the backyard and a hot tub in the house, and then that all ended, and then it's just been kind of sitting there for a long time. Yeah.
Okay, sounds promising. Anybody else? Okay, staff report?
No staff report.
Okay. All right, so next is study session. At our last meeting, we kind of introduced the notion of talking about some activities, preservation education activities maybe that we could do as commissioners, and minimal, if any, staff or resources from the city, because we hadn't done any seminars or any tours in quite a while, and this kind of has come up a few times. So in celebration of National Preservation Month in May, let's think about some ideas of things we might be able to do to start promoting historic preservation more. Variety of activities, and then I'd like to take away, some things that each of us could go do a little bit of more work on before the next meeting, and even kind of pencil in some dates and look at when some of these would take place, so that we have a little bit of an action plan too. So, jump right in. Matt, thank you.
Well, in the agenda here, it has the link to the the National Trust for Historic Preservation. One of the things that I saw on there that was pretty high up, but I think is pretty neat, is basically a campaign to encourage people to say this place matters. It associates people with places that they care about, and they're encouraged to take photos of themselves there with a sign that says this place matters, and then post it wherever that may be. I think that would be pretty neat to do here. What's your favorite part of Urbana? Why is it your favorite part of Urbana? What's the history there? Do you know what it is? What is your connection to it? What makes it historic for you? I mean, all of those questions would be a great way to kind of connect with people and encourage them to look around and to engage and to be excited about the same things that we're all excited about being up here when they look around their town.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be a easy enough thing to do. And our partners over in Champaign in the Historic Preservation Commission really don't meet very regularly, hardly ever meet. And I wonder if we might partner with them to do something at the same time, maybe.
Oh, yeah. A Twin Cities, this
Yeah.
place matters.
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool idea. Yeah.
So we'd have to have, some kind of a deadline maybe, although it's nice to see it be ongoing, but there has to be some way to receive the pictures and some way to display. And I don't know if that can be done at the city building or Lincoln Square or...
Well, to my mind, we should also have a digital form for those kinds of things. And I don't know whether that, we can probably work something out again with minimal involvement with staff. Creating photo galleries is not web intensive. So, maybe we can connect with someone, and if it's a Twin Cities project, we have double the brain power to go into how to make that effective and efficient.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, doing it digitally, people are, and maybe we somehow connect that to our tours, like almost do this quasi a citizens tour. These are the places that are recognized as historic because of because of our ordinances and because of the National Register. But these are the things that we also consider to be historic. Because in my mind, I'm picturing there's a lot of mid-century modern stuff around here that people would have connections to growing up that's now theoretically more than 50 years old. But we haven't seen a lot of things come through in terms of nominations on that. But that doesn't take away people's connection to that. So maybe there's some angle that we could explore there.
It's a great idea, I think. Other thoughts or more on This Place Matters?
Is there something in the last year encouraging, like people to record histories of what they knew about their house, or get that into, was it to go to the archives, or just seems like I've heard something about, I don't think it was just in my neighborhood.
I don't recall anything.
No.
Dennis, sorry,
You,
doesn't sound familiar to me, but
Yeah. So,
I know that there's been a lot of house surveys done in West Urbana and some of the central downtown areas. So since I live in East Urbana, I felt like there should be one for that as well. And I did get it was I don't know, $1,000 grant or something, or $800 grant from PACA to conduct a mailing and do a survey about 5 years ago now, which I did. I distributed them all by hand as I went through my neighborhood, from Broadway to Cottage Grove and Hartle, and from Washington north to Water. And I also took a digital survey of all the houses on every block, which I have in a file, but I've never combined the written reports that I received with the images. And that was one of the things I wanted to do, was to find a dedicated place on the city server to place them so that there would be files that you could interact with and enter your own data to the houses that you recognized. So it would be a growing database. And I never put that together. That's like a missing part. But now we do have a new tech supervisor for the city, Sanford Hess. I think he'd probably help me with that. I've let him, he's pretty new on the job too in this last year, so I haven't burdened him with that yet, but I intend to, within the next year or so. So that's one part of, I think my interest in the east side of town. But I encourage that. There are so many stories that you just get anecdotally when you talk to people on the block that you would never know about. And I even bought a digital recorder, a voice recorder to do interviews, but I haven't used it yet because, all these things take time, and you have multiple things to do in life. So one would hope that someday more of these stories would be surfacing.
Thanks.
It would be great to have a geographical component to that too. I'm I'm a super huge fan of geographic information systems and their potential for historic preservation and for local history. So if we have basically the raw data right there with the digital photographs and some of the background from some of the neighbors, I mean, that would sure be great to find a place on the city server where we can, even if we use a proprietary mapping system like Google, we could do something like that. But I mean, we also have access to the city's GIS equipment, so their export, capabilities for that too, and public display opportunities. So maybe that can all be tied together.
Good. Other things, anybody? What about, so one of the problems we have is we don't have enough local landmarks applications coming before the commission. So one way, at least theoretically, to deal with that would be to have a building research workshop or a series or something and teaching people how to research their own properties. Does anybody think that would be productive? Sure. It's been quite a while. We did something like that. It's been more than 10 years ago, probably. Yeah. And I don't think there's been anything much. I think before maybe we did it at the library.
Did we have somebody come in, or did we just?
I think I did it, and maybe Brian Adams helped too.
All right.
I don't remember.
What kind of response did you get?
It was crowded, standing room only. But I completely forget what time of the year it was. It's not a good summertime thing, probably, right? Unless it's really hot and people are coming in for air conditioning. But, well, I mean, it's all strategic, right? So if you pick a gorgeous Saturday morning, it's going to be a no-show. But we could either do a longer session or break it up into 2 parts or something, or yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I would
Okay.
be glad to volunteer my time to help with that if need be, certainly.
That's an excellent topic.
So what do you think about the timing of something like that? Is it better as an evening thing or a Saturday thing or Sunday afternoon thing, or go on and try to do it this summer or wait till fall?
I'd say an evening.
Evening?
I'd say an evening thing. That's just the way I see things, but somebody else might think it'd be better on a weekend.
Mhm.
But then people go away on weekends and.
Okay. Evening? Yep.
Is it a fall thing, Alice? I kind of agree with you that in the summer, it's sometimes, people go on vacation, there are other priorities,
Okay.
people want to go out and play volleyball at night or whatnot, and they don't want to be inside the building necessarily. So maybe come fall time when people get a little bit more oriented to taking action,
Okay.
maybe that's.
Okay, so we could maybe look at calendars and things, and at our next meeting, try to hone in on a date and location, maybe? I guess the Lewis Auditorium at the Urbana Library is a logical, I don't know where else we'd have it, frankly. Oh, the new event space, maybe. I don't know how it would work if we had something in here, but we can't get that many people in here, so.
Something that if we thought we'd have a big turnout, we could maybe do at the Civic Center.
Maybe.
So how did you get the word out?
Don't-
5 years ago when you did it, or?
More than 10 years ago, probably.
10 years ago.
I don't remember. I think there was something in the paper. Now all the neighborhoods have pretty active listservs, which is
Yeah.
really helpful as well, too. So we have at least 3 active neighborhood listservs. We can post something here in the city building. I'm sure part of it was luck at the time, too. And I don't know if it would, if we had 2 sessions, if that would make sense to just explain the landmarks process or something, if we need to do something like that, or if that's too scary.
2 sessions is too scary.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
condense everything into one, show them where the archives are, where some of the resources are, and
Okay.
in and out.
But maybe do it twice then, you know, the word gets out in the first one,
Yeah, I mean,
and then maybe you
I
have
think
a
that would make
follow-up,
sense if it,
you know,
yeah,
a month later, 2 months later.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
It would be great to do something to connect with the market on Saturday mornings. I drove by there the other morning. I was flabbergasted by the number of people there. And thrilled because that's really awesome, and that's great work that the city is doing to help to promote that. I wonder, are there opportunities for information, either a booth or, you know, something when I lived in Trenton, New Jersey, we had a landmarks commission, so the equivalent here of our HPC, put out a recognizing your historic house. And so it would basically list the traits. Now, Trenton's historic infrastructure goes back a few more years, but we have a lot of distinctive types here that people would be able to recognize. Is this Italianate? Is this a Queen Anne? Is this mid-century modern? I mean, we absolutely need to start putting that in there. The 50s and 60s are historic now, and we have to embrace that.
What was this called again?
It was just basically a recognizing your historic house. It was a brochure that says, because people I think are interested in, what is my house like? Why are these all the same here, and then it's a little bit different over there? And so basically, I mean, literally, it was a nugget. It was like not even a paragraph describing each house type or where it was most prominent in town, but that's kind of a cursory level introduction to understanding place and the built environment in our city.
How, Kevin, since you've been here longer than Lori, does the city have a booth, or as a commission, can we get a space, or how does that work?
Oh, at the market?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'd have to talk to our market coordinator, Natalie, but I could check into that.
That'd be nice.
I think it's a pretty hot commodity.
Yeah, I know.
But maybe they could squeeze us in
I
somewhere.
know. I think that's a great idea, and I guess in partnership with that, maybe the Corn Festival as well too. It's nice and hot and miserable during the Corn Festival, but still lots of people there. So, could you check on that as well, or do we need to check with UBA on that?
That's the UBA
Okay.
that handles that.
Okay.
So you're talking now about authoring and producing a brochure, a trifold.
Yes.
That talks about basic house form, has some pictures of identifiable examples, and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Or even
I think-
sketches.
yeah, well, pictures are pretty easy.
Right.
I think I like that idea. I got a digital camera. Everybody does, but
Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Brochure sounds kind of scary to me, because then we have to get somebody to put together and go through lots of edits and things like that. But we need something. I don't know if we could do just a poster thing or something that would be a talking point, or.
Well, ideally, I mean, if in my mind, having done a couple of different convention sales things before, I mean, ideally, we would have both. We would have posters that would have more information, and then the trifold is something that you would take with you. I'd be glad to, I mean, if we're concerned about the design and setup, I'd be glad to try to tackle that. I think coming up with the content is going to be, and condensing it, because there's a lot to be said about American Foursquare architecture, but, a paragraph is enough for a lot of people, and we want it to be portable. We want, even if they aren't reading it right then, we want them to put it in their bag and be like, oh yeah, what's my house when they get home?
Okay, that's a good idea. Other things. Nobody's mentioned tours.
didn't tours cost money?
No.
No? Not to print bags, not to arrange? I can't remember. I thought the modern home tour was really cool.
Oh, well, yeah, that was amazing.
I liked that one a lot.
Yeah. You don't have to have tour T-shirts and tour bags.
You don't need the bags, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that came from I thought the impetus for that was grant money that Rebecca had found for us to get that started, I guess. I don't
know.
recall, I don't
There
recall
was
how that got
also-
rolling.
There was also a class at the university. There was a class that sought out and kind of documented the buildings, and so there was a good base, a strong base for that to begin with. But, you know, earlier on, when the commission was first formed, we did just walking tours of the downtown, you know, and it was fine. We'd get a dozen people, and, you know, that would be something easy to do. You know, we could start tours at the market on the square somewhere and just walk around for 50 minutes, talk about downtown buildings or something.
Love to tie another opportunity. Are you thinking to tie into the market?
Well, yeah, I mean, if we advertised the tour and we just, you know, met at a certain place at the market, had a sign, follow the person with the sign, and go off on a tour, you know, maybe it would work. But yeah, you're right. I'm impressed by how many people are there. So, broaden our audience. Any other things? So in the past, we've done certified local government grants and workshops related to kind of hands-on demonstration project things. We've done windows, and we did stucco, and
Siding removal.
that's right, we did an unveiling. So those are kind of things that cost more money, but you know, if we had an expert that we could bring in on window repair or something like that, it might be that we could partner with PACA or the Champaign Commission as well, and, you know, have a broader reach, maybe? Are there any particular old building issues that we could tackle for an education or demonstration project? Particular problem, issues?
I like windows because it's very, very visual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things I feel like is, it would also be really good to talk about water and the problems that water creates to infrastructure. But I think that's a little bit harder to show, short of pictures or video, in terms of a demonstration.
We have an international expert on water issues with buildings
Oh, yeah?
who lives a few blocks from here.
Well, then it's not a lack of resources in terms of knowledge.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
cool.
He's got lots of visuals.
Okay.
But yeah, water's a good idea. Any other thoughts? The National Trust had community service projects and tips and tools, photo contests. We kind of talked about that for This Place Matters. I do think we should pursue This Place Matters. I think that would be just really meaningful and easy. Other thoughts? Oh, you printed that.
Selfie with your house.
Yeah. And I also like the idea of what you said about a tour that might come out of This Place Matters, depending on the results that we get for that. Other thoughts? No.
Well, yeah, I was at the PACA annual meeting just recently, and somebody said something, oh, we should have another house tour.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody from the board said, well, would you like to organize it? Oh, no. They do take some work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the publicity and, but the ones that I remember, whether it was a PACA one or one where I was standing out in front of a house on Main Street, it seems like we had mobs of people, and people cared about it, so.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, we can do all kinds of different tours. We can do neighborhood walking tours and just look at styles and types or something and not go in buildings. It's the going in buildings thing that gets really, really complicated.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and then you have to have lots more volunteer staff, which is hard to find. And
Yeah.
Maybe there's a theme we could somehow tie in. So if we we had that gentleman present a while back on one of the factories that was in Urbana. And so maybe we do a tour of industrial sites or things that were made in Urbana and where you can see the evidence of it, or the infrastructure where those things were made.
Yeah, you could always pull a Royer card out of the deck and play it. The Arts and Architecture District, we really haven't done anything to support that. And I think there's like plaquing going on and stuff like that happens. And there's a fairly good cluster that are downtown. So if you wanted to spring something from the farmer's market, that's a notable one that you could try. And I think there's already a brochure for that, so Matt wouldn't have to single-handedly create a brochure for that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like the idea of the thematic things. Certainly worked for the modern tour. Stuart Burlocker, it's been a while since he's been in, but he's done a great deal of research on pre-Civil War era buildings in Urbana. So it could be that could be a possible theme as well. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think those early mapping exercises are just really cool. You know, he's the one who found that chunk of a Lincoln building, or at least he convinced us it was a chunk of a Lincoln building. And I believe that derives from, again, these maps I characterize as the Sanborn maps. And I think anything you can do with those is darn near golden, just because they're so old, they're so funky and yet kind of descriptive in their own kind of, the whole context of how they were created and why and all that is really, I think it's a neat story.
Okay. Trent's yawning, so I guess we better wrap this up. Any other thoughts? So our emphasis, takeaways on this is this place matters and trying to get something rolling with that. I'll talk to somebody in Champaign and see if their commission might want to do something at the same time, and we could both be running that. And that is something that maybe we could roll off in the early fall. I'm just kind of looking at summer as just maybe a planning time and not a good time to really try to do anything. Although the market on the square. Okay, so next in line would be possible table presence, booth presence at Market on the Square, and or some simple downtown walking tours that would be connected with the meeting at the square. Okay. Is there a number 2? And then number 3 is looking ahead for the fall for a place and people to conduct how to research your own house. And we'd have a little bit on landmarking available there too. And then maybe a presence at the Corn Fest, maybe. And then we sort of talked about demonstration projects, maybe a window repair or water issues too. But that's kind of, for me, would be the bottom thing on the list. It's going to be a little more intensive to figure that out. Okay. So I would just ask, I don't know when we'll end up meeting again. Probably won't have any business for a while, but.
Can I ask when does the market end? I mean, it goes into the fall. Okay, so we have time that we can still tie into that.
Yeah.
Even if it's not
absolutely.
early on. So
Yeah.
to be able to have a space at the market where we do a window repair, where we bring in some historic windows and then we, just do it right there. Set up the horses, and that's going to get people's attention. People will come over and they'll look, and here's what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is why you should do it.
Yeah.
If you've got a house that's like this.
Well,
You could always advertise this place matters too. I mean, you could start with some sort of visual display and ask people to submit things.
That's true. So for this place matters, though, we need to figure out how we can have online access.
For submissions or both, yeah, for submissions and for
Yeah, I don't know.
housing and display. That's a good point.
All right, so we'll look into that. We'll maybe can we talk to Mr. Hess possibly about some ideas? Maybe, yes. We'll see. Okay.
might we be getting together again before long to talk about this proclamation business? Is that, I mean, I hate to have 2 or 3 months go by and not
Yeah,
talk about this again. So
Yeah.
that might be an excuse to have a meeting next month.
maybe.
If we have some news, or have some,
Yeah, we typically don't meet much, but, I mean, could we request that we meet again in June, just to kind of follow up on some of these things? Even though it's summer and we don't usually
Yeah,
do things in the summer?
Absolutely.
Okay.
and how many, is this our 3rd meeting of the year right now? This one?
Second. I
Did we have one in
think.
January that I wasn't here for?
I don't
No,
remember.
Second one?
Second or third.
Yeah.
Okay. Are people generally able to make the June meeting? And then we probably wouldn't meet in, okay.
Oh, actually, no.
No.
Want you all to come.
We'll read the minutes very closely
Yeah, that's
on your
true.
behalf.
All right.
Well, when would a June meeting be? I mean, I guess that,
I don't know. First Wednesday, whatever that
First
is.
Wednesday, yeah, okay.
Whatever the
Okay.
first Wednesday
Yeah,
is,
okay.
yeah.
Probably an early date.
So other things, I guess sort of related to this are announcements. I guess we're going into announcements now. The State Preservation Conference, in conjunction with the Illinois Main Street, is June 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Carbondale, Illinois. And so you can go on to the landmarks.org, Landmarks Illinois website, and get more information on the conference. So that would be a good chance to get, good preservation education opportunities to see what people from around the state are doing. Be able to go, clearly the main day for activities on that is the 24th. And what else? There was some other conference, I think. Yes.
Can I just add to that? If anybody wants to go to that conference, we probably have room to, if anybody wants to carpool, we've got 3 of our planning staff are going to that.
Who's going?
historic. Me, Jeff, and Chris.
Nice.
Yes.
Yay.
So if anybody wants to sit in a car with 3 planners for a few hours, you
It's a
can
great
you can join
offer.
us.
It's a great offer. I'm glad you're not riding your bike that far. Any other announcement things? We didn't bring this up, but Mumford House is something we haven't talked about for a while. And at one point, we had some correspondence related to that. So maybe if we're going to be able to meet in June, we'll bring in the correspondence that we had, and we should put that on the agenda as well for discussion. Any other announcement things? Nope. Do we have a motion to adjourn then?
Adjourn, please. Move to.
I second his motion.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you.